preparation for this case, well, let me back up one moment. Were you asked to analyze any items in connection with this case?
I was.
What items were you asked to analyze?
So I had some segments of bones, a deer processing kit, and a knife.
Okay. Can you tell the jury, does the firearms and toolmark section follow the same standards and protocols for evidence submission as the other areas within the laboratory?
Yes.
How does that work with the bones themselves? How did you get those?
So those would have been submitted by the medical examiner's office.
Okay. Do they go in through the locker or do they come in a different fashion?
It has to go through our evidence receiving. So I'm not exactly sure how they would have gotten these from the medical examiner's office, but it has to go through the same procedure as all evidence that's coming from a medical examiner's office. So it has to be submitted through evidence receiving, where it's given its own item number, case number, things like that, entered into our laboratory information management system. Pictures are taken of it, how it was submitted, things like that, before it can come up to me.
Okay. And did all of that occur in this case?
It did.
Did that happen with respect to the bones themselves?
It did.
Did that happen with respect to the knife?
It did.
And did that occur with respect to the deer processing kit?
It did.
Do you have two of those items in front of you now?
I do.
Can you tell us the exhibit numbers, the little red tag on the knife first?
States Exhibit 1.13.
Okay, and the deer processing kit, what number is that?
2.25C.
Okay, and let's talk first about the knife. Do you know who submitted that knife?
That would be Region 5, GBI Region 5.
Okay, and when you received that knife, can you tell the jury what a suspect tool is?
So a suspect tool is a tool that was taken off of whoever the suspect is or from their property. They have that tool that's connected to a person, and they usually, the reason it's being submitted is to see if we can determine if it was the tool that was used.
Okay, would that also involve tools at crime scenes?
They would.
Okay, and specifically the knife in your possession there, was that a suspect tool?
It was.
Okay, and can you tell us if there's a difference to suspect tools versus the deer processing kit that you're also holding? So the knife was a suspect tool, so something that was connected somehow to the crime, whether through...
We have to hit a break. Our thanks to Philip DeBay for his expertise this hour. We have more testimony in this trial, the one against Nick Kassotis in Georgia, when we come back. Don't go anywhere. .com. Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Julia Janae along with Ted Rollins. Thank you for being with us as we are in Georgia this afternoon for the dismembered wife murder trial for a defendant who's a former JAG officer, Nick Kassotis.
Yeah, he's accused of dismembering his wife, Mindi. Back in 2022, the remains of Mindi's body were found scattered throughout a local hunting club in rural Georgia. It wouldn't be until several months later that police were able to track down the husband after they identified the body. But at the time, he had changed his name. He was now Nick Stark, and he was already married, again, living up in Pennsylvania.
Let's get you back inside the courtroom now, where the jury is hearing from a firearms and toolmarks examiner, Lauren Satcher.
I do.
Do you recognize them?
I do.
What do you recognize those photographs to be?
These are photographs of the bones, and then casts that I made of some of the bones, and then some photographs of a piece of lead wire that I made some cuts in with a saw from the deer processing kit, and a close-up of the teeth of the saw of the deer processing kit.
Are those all photographs that you yourself took, rather?
I did.
Are those a fair and accurate depiction of, or just photocopies rather, of the original photographs?
They are.
At this time, I would seek to introduce those photographs, Your Honor.
No objection, Your Honor. And they are admitted without objection.
Thank you. At this time, I'd also like to provide her with 1.103. I'm handing you a 2-page document. Do you recognize that?
I do.
What is that you're holding?
It is my report.
Okay. And do you recognize that to be the report that you prepared in connection with your conclusions concerning the knife and the bones?
I do.
Is that a accurate report, just a photocopy of the original?
It is.
Does it have your signature on it?
It does.
At this time, I would seek to introduce 1.103.
No objection, Your Honor. It's also admitted.
Okay. Now, can you tell the jury, I'm going to start with your PowerPoint. The PowerPoint itself, does that have any notations that you made as well? Meaning in the margins in addition to just the photograph?
Yes.
Okay. And did you do so in a fashion to attempt to assist the jury in understanding your processing of the materials?
Yes.
At this time, Your Honor, I would seek to introduce that as a demonstrative aid, that being listed as photo PowerPoint within the subfolder of Lauren Satcher under witnesses on 1.101, the USB.
No objection to it being admitted as a demonstrative, Your Honor.
I have this photograph separately, Your Honor, before the court.
Thank you. It is admitted.
At this time, may I publish, Your Honor?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'm going to go to slide number 1. And can you tell us what is that number that's depicted on the screen?
That would be the DOFS, or Division of Forensic Science, case number.
Okay. And does every case have its own unique number?
It does.
Do you recognize that number as associated with this case?
I do.
And did you document that in your report?
I did.
Can you tell us what's in the very first slide that is here? One moment. Where it says item 23.
So item 23 would be the humerus bone. What we're looking at there is those markings in the center of the bone.
Okay. And with respect to that bone, were either of the ends of that bone examined by you?
They were not.
Why not?
Because both of the ends were cut by the medical examiner's office.
Okay, so that was from an intact bone that was provided to you being basically cut out by the medical examiner?
Correct. So the medical examiner saw the tool marks and then just cut out that segment of bone and only submitted that portion of the bone.
Okay. And can you tell us, what did you do with this segment, number 23, when you received it?
So again, I would have cleaned it off and then given it wrote the item number on it. You can kind of see on the left, I've designated one side A and one side B just so we can orient the bone. And then just kind of...
Does that assist?
There we go. And then just documented the presence of what I call false starts.
Can you tell us what a false start is?
So a false start is any cut that was made that was not finished. So a terminal cut would be a cut that's made all the way from top to bottom and it severs, like what the ME did, where they completely severed. False starts are cuts where they started the cut and it was never finished. I just call it a false start.
Okay. Can you tell what the difference is between a false start and a deep false start?
So a deep false start is just a type of false start. These are pretty shallow false starts. A deep false start would just be that cut that goes deeper into the bone before it stops. So it doesn't go all the way. It's not a terminal cut that completely severs, but it's a deep false start if it's going far into the bone, but is not actually used to completely finish the cut.
Okay. Well, when you first received the knife that you have, if you could actually, there are gloves if you'd like to your right. If you could show it to the jury, I'm referring to the, not the deer processing kit, but the first knife. Can you tell the jury what you did with respect to that knife when you first received it?
So when I received this knife, the first thing that, again, I'm going to look at is class characteristics. So I'm looking at things that are easy to determine, like the manufacturer, documenting the width, the length, the type of blade. I'm looking for any trace evidence that I can see just with my naked eye on here. And so I am just basically, at first glance of this knife, giving an overview of all of the different characteristics that I'm seeing of this knife.
Okay. And would that include the type of knife that it is, meaning is it serrated or smooth, things of that nature?
Yes.
Okay. And would you document that?
Yes.
Okay. And with respect to this knife, did you note any individual characteristics?
With this knife, I never looked for individual characteristics on this knife because I didn't do a comparison of this knife to anything at an individual characteristic level.
Okay, why not?
So I was able to determine that this knife was not used on the other 4 bones based on a disagreement of class characteristics. Basically, this knife, it has a beveled edge, so it kind of goes in. So the cut that it's going to make is going to be a V shape, okay? And as we'll see a little bit later with some of these bones, where you can see the floor in these false starts, what's called the kerf floor, is in a W shape, which tells me that we're not looking at a knife that leaves the V-shaped floor, as well as some patterns that are consistent with tooth hop on the bones.
I'm going to slow you down for just a second. You said
Sure.
tooth hop?
Tooth hop.
Okay. Is that T-O-O-T-H, tooth hop?
Correct.
Okay. And what are you referring to when you say the word tooth hop?
So when you're looking at some of the bones, you can see what kind of looks like peaks, or I guess valleys. Basically what this indicates is the presence of teeth on whatever tool was used, because as that tool is going into the bone, and as each tooth hits, it's going to make a motion like this, and the teeth themselves can leave impressions behind on the wall of the cut. So looking at the wall of the cut, you can see what's consistent with tooth hop, which basically just is that little hopping motion that's happening as whatever tool was being pushed into the bone. And as each tooth is introduced and it causes that up-down motion, it's leaving predictable waves or peaks or valleys or motions.
Okay. Now you said that this knife had a V shape. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Now I'm going to put us onto the next slide. Can you tell us what's depicted here?
So this is a photograph that I took under my microscope. So we're looking at that same bone. So it is the humerus. We're looking at those false starts kind of from the side there. So you can see that they're pretty shallow. And that's just documenting those false starts on that humerus.
Now I'm pointing to a section right here on the very far left. Can you tell the jury what conclusions, if any, that you could make with respect to that mark?
So looking at this bone, I was not able to eliminate or even compare to the knife. The problem being that area that you were just indicating. I can't tell because there are so many false starts here. I can't tell if what I'm looking at there is 2 different false starts or if it's one in the shape of a W. So there's basically too much noise going on with all of these shallow false starts. So I can't determine exactly the characteristics that I'm looking at, even in that section. It could be the W shape that's indicating some teeth, or it could be two different false starts from a knife with a V shape.
So would it be fair to say that you are super conservative when it comes to your analysis?
Objection leading.
I'll rephrase. How does that impact your analysis when it comes to multiple false starts versus a saw tooth pattern?
So in this case, with this bone, just because there are so many that I can't really determine confidently where one false start is compared to another, especially on that side that has a little bit deeper of a cut. Because I can't with any confidence make a determination on how many false starts are right there, I am not going to speculate on the shape of the false start.
Okay. And the tool marks that you see on the farther right portion of this bone, to the right of the letter 3, or the number, I should say 3, did you draw any conclusions there?
No.
Same analysis?
Yes, so for this entire bone, it was the same story. There's just too many shallow false starts for me to be able to confidently give any characteristics to it.
Okay. But you tried?
I did.
Now I'm going to turn to, and just so we're clear, you said the humerus. What part of the body is that?
It's the arm.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, let's get a break. When we come back, we'll have more of this testimony as our coverage of this case out of the state of Georgia with this defendant who has told so many tales. Nicholas Kassotis continues. Stay with us.
A woman's remains found scattered throughout a 3-mile area.
Now, a former naval officer stands trial accused of killing his wife.
The Dismembered Wife murder trial. Live coverage today on Court TV.
Tonight on Closing Arguments, untangling a web of lies and deceit as a former naval officer stands accused of murder. We're live with the latest from the Dismembered Wife murder trial.
Closing Arguments tonight at 8, 7 Central, only on Court TV.
Let's head back to Georgia now for more of the Dismembered Wife murder trial. Prosecutors say that Nicholas Kassotis lied to his in-laws for years about a secretive job that put him and his wife, Mindi Kassotis, in constant danger.
And we understand that Mindi believed that they were in danger as well, but prosecutors say this was just an elaborate story and that he eventually killed and dismembered Mindi in order to be with another woman. Let's get you back into court now, where we're hearing from a Toolmarks Examiner about the cuts found on Mindi's remains.
Thank you. I'm going to turn now to the next slide, item number 24. Can you tell us what you observe in this slide under item 24?
So this is a different bone. We're looking at the suspect cut side. So the part that's down that is not in focus, that's the side that the ME cut. So we're not concerned with that side. What I'm looking at on this end of the bone, you can see there's a couple very, very, very shallow false starts right at the top of that, top to the right of that side of the bone.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness for just a moment? Would it assist at all? I don't know if it won't show up perhaps on that monitor. I don't know that it would help. I was going to try and give her that. If you could just maybe, for the record, then indicate where you're referring to on the picture. Is it on the right side or the left side of the bone?
So on the right side of the bone, you see two little scratches.
Are you referring to this section right here? You said 2 scratches?
Yes.
Okay.
So that would be some very, 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 very shallow false starts. And then farther to the left, you can see that big, yes, that area right there, where you see that big trench. That would be a deep false start. So again, that false start where that tool started to go down, and then before finishing the cut, it was taken back out.
Okay. And if we scroll down to the next slide, can you tell us what's depicted in this slide of item 24?
So here we're looking at the floor of that false start. So these cut or saw marks are called kerfs, K-E-R-F, kerf. So in this picture, we can see the width of that kerf and a little bit of the floor of that kerf. So here I'm measuring the width because the blade that made this cut cannot be wider than the cut itself. So if you have a blade that's, 3 inches wide and you have a cut that's 0.07 inch or 0.067 inches, obviously that blade did not fit. So we're looking at the width of the cut or the false start that was made, because that can give an indication of what type of tools could or could not have made the cut.
Okay. And you indicated that this one was a kerf floor. Is that right?
You can kind of see the kerf floor. So again, if the saw or cut mark is the kerf, since this one wasn't finished, you can see the bottom, and my measurement's a little bit in the way there, but you can see how it's kind of making a W shape.
Okay. And what does the W shape to you indicate as a Toolmarks analyst?
So a W shape like this is typically indicating a saw, like a crosscut saw, basically meaning that the teeth of the saw are kind of at angles. So as that that tool is sawing, the teeth are cutting in on either side, and then there's that W shape as it comes up in the middle where the teeth aren't at.
Okay. And so how would that reflect with respect to the knife that you have held up for the jury?
Again, so since that knife would make a V shape, it's not going to make a W shape like this. It has that beveled, non-serrated, no teeth edge on that knife.
Do you have any way to do tool mark analysis on human flesh?
I do not.
Why not?
Well, it's, for one thing, it's too malleable. It's not going to pick up those markings from the tool. And in addition to that, I didn't get any. So I can only work with what I have.
Would you normally cut human flesh as part of your analysis?
No.
Okay. And so you don't have any way, withdrawn, do you have any way of knowing whether or not that knife was used on the flesh of this deceased?
I have no way of knowing that.
Okay. I'm now scrolling to the cast. That's item 24 cast. And just so we're clear, can you tell us what item 24, what that was, what bone?
The right femur.
Okay. And would it be fair to say how many segments of bone did you look at?
5.
And which were those?
The right humerus, and then the right and left femur, the leg side and torso side of both femurs.
So would it be fair to say both sides of the cuts?
Yes.
Okay. And 24 you said was the right femur?
It is.
Okay. I'm now scrolling down to that cast. Can you tell the jury what's depicted here in the cast?
So during my analysis, I looked at the bones themselves, but I also took casts of the bones to try to see if there were any other characteristics that were visible when I casted it that I couldn't see by just looking at the bone. So the reason it looks brown is it's a Accutrans cast. It kind of looks like a caulk gun, and you put that material onto the bone, let it set, and you can pull it off. So that's what we're looking at here, is the casting of the bone. What I'm showing here is a pattern that's consistent with the tooth hop. So remember, during that sawing process, as the different teeth come into contact with the bones and it causes that tool to move up and down, it can leave behind waves or valleys kind of like this that you can measure, and it can give an idea of the distance between two teeth on the saw. So in this cast, looking at two different areas where you can see a very consistent measurement between the different peaks or the valleys left behind.
Okay. And with respect to your analysis, did you have a suspect saw to compare?
I did not.